Hello. All right. Welcome to Summon Greater Podcast. It's going to be me and the ghost.
Merry Christmas, everybody! Yeah. And Happy New Year!
Hello, welcome back.
This is my child. He was given to me this Christmas.
Nice child, dude.
He's a thick boy. Like, he's got some heft to him. All right. You sit down there.
Gengar's a thick little man.
Watch Daddy talk about nerd shit.
He fell over.
Well, I didn't say he was a smart child.
We've been cooking.
We've cooked so much.
Had to cook a lot for the holiday, dude.
Yeah.
I was driving a lot.
You did. You drove a hefty amount.
The whole... probably just like... For my holiday travels specifically, it was about 15 hours of driving.
Woo!
Total. Yeah.
We did about 8.
Yeah.
That was about the maximum of our driving.
That's a bunch, too.
Also, I just realized I said hefty again. So be a little bingo card for you. See how many times I say that this episode, because for some reason it's in my head now.
Yeah, this episode is not sponsored by a certain garbage bag brand.
Oh, I forgot they existed. No, but if anyone out there is listening and wants to sponsor us, that'd be pretty cool.
That'd be kind of lit.
But we thought, what better way to start the new year than by going back to when we were brand freaking new at Dungeons and Dragons.
What about when we were brand spanking new at it?
Back to that oh so special day when someone asked you, hey, do you want to make a character?
Yeah.
And you went, how the fuck do I do that?
When someone pulled you forcefully into a study room.
Yeah, when they grab you by your wrists and ankles and haul you across the main lobby of a college great room. Exactly that, yeah. And they say, okay, well, first things first, what class do you want to be? And you go, man, I didn't come here for homework. Can you remember back in your little D&D brain to the first time someone said, do you want to be a barbarian? And you went, what did a barbarian do?
Get hit harder.
Yeah, exactly. So we thought it would be cool to kind of like break it down and go back to the origins and like what each class do. So if you're going through the player's handbook and you're looking at classes, what's the first one that pops up? They go alphabetically, so it's... I just had a stroke.
Holy shit.
Barbarian.
Yeah.
What do a barbarian do?
You get mad and you swing.
Yeah, exactly. But kind of what we want to talk about is like, what makes a barbarian different from a fighter? Mm-hmm. What makes a barbarian different from any other class? Now, a lot of you who are watching this have probably been playing D&D long enough to be able to go, I know what a barbarian does. You don't have to tell me. It's not for you, okay? It's for everyone else who's sitting back going, I don't know what a barbarian does. And at this point, I'm too afraid to ask. Barbarians are thematically wild people. Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of the barbarian stuff is kind of based around, is the wilderness and being like a huntsman or like a lumberjack kind of dude. I don't know. Lumberjack barbarian. That's one I hadn't thought of until just now.
That'd be interesting. What subclass is that?
What subclass?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh, come on, Sam. No, you gotta be with me on this one.
What?
You know where I'm going with this, right?
Do I?
You've been to the Dells.
Are you talking about Paul Bunyan?
Yeah, I am. Paul Bunyan. I think it'd have to be Path of the Giant.
Okay. Sure.
For those,
I like it.
for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, look up Paul Bunyan and his great blue ox Babe.
And the Round River.
The Round River.
Do you remember that one?
That's vaguely familiar.
It's like
yeah.
it's one of the short stories where like I forget why they follow a river. I don't know what for. It was like maybe it was to find something that like drifted down it. But then they follow it for a while, and it's like, oh, we're back where we started, and the river is fucking round. It goes in a circle.
Amazing. The only short story I remember is how there used to be like a forest in Arizona, and Paul Bunyan cut down every single tree in Arizona in like a day and a half. And then he was so tired that on his way back to the cabin, he kind of let his axe drag, and that's where the Grand Canyon came from.
So stupid. It's so stupid.
I know.
Dude.
Oh,
American folktales are actually ridiculous.
it is so freaking funny. But yeah, back to barbarians. What makes them different? What makes them unique in comparison to all of the other martial classes? I mean, you said it vaguely, basically earlier. Get angry, hit hard.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
What?
Oh my god, if you know this, it's gonna like trigger you so hard. Do you know who Pecos Bill is?
God damn you.
Do you?
Yes, I know.
Really?
Pecos Bill. God damn you.
Really?
I wish this weren't water.
Why? Wait, why do you know that?
I don't know. I don't know. You have awoken an ancient Wisconsinite genome in me.
This isn't a Wisconsin thing at all.
Really?
This is a New Mexico thing.
What?
Why do you know this?
I don't know.
My family lived in Roswell for a bit, right? And it's not terribly. It's kind of close to the Pecos River
Okay.
that runs through the southeastern Wisconsin.
My grandma.
Sorry, New Mexico.
My grandma lives in Arizona.
Uh-huh.
I bet she told me about Pecos Bill.
That could be. That could be. Yeah, he got real thirsty and then dug the Rio Grande with a stick.
Hell are American folk tales.
I don't know.
It's just some random ass macho dude who's like, I'm upset. I'm gonna create a landmark.
Yeah. Maybe one day I'll come up with a build for the roughest critter west of the Alamo. So.
Dude, freaking Appalachian campaign.
Dude, actually, that would be tight.
That would be badass.
We've been cooking up this idea. Actually, our buddy Justin has been cooking up this idea in his noggin for a bit. To do an Appalachia campaign.
Yeah, Deep South Appalachians.
Yeah.
It's gonna be crazy.
I think I want to do that. That'll be fun when we get around to it.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think a barbarian is like kind of the perfect class to kind of be represented by like an Appalachian kind of a thing too.
In a lot of ways, yes, I think.
It's very like lives in the woods, like has an innate awareness to the like natural world around them.
Yeah,
which
had
is,
her bad run in with brainworms.
had some bad shine a couple years ago. His left eye's never been the same.
Yeah. These tropes line up.
Barbarian could totally be a redneck. But yeah, so barbarian in my mind is kind of like the connection between a fighter and a druid.
Oh, that is a good way to think about it.
Yeah. We'll get into fighter and
especially when
druid.
you think about like ancestral guardian
Yeah.
or like storm herald kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get into fighter and druid a little bit later. Suffice to say, fighter is kind of the most basic of the martial classes, but then druid has wild shape, which gives you additional toughness and has a connection to nature, and barbarian's kind of like smack dab in the middle, with rage giving you additional resilience. And you usually have abilities that are like danger sense or You gain a little bit extra movement because you're used to being out in the wilds and whatever. When you're looking at just the class itself, straightforward from top to bottom, your primary ability is Rage, which is an activatable ability that gives you resistance to damage and makes you hit a little bit harder, and basically means you're too angry to cast a spell. You cannot focus on the intricacies of magic. You are seeing red.
Focusing on yourself a little bit. Not in the way of self-care, though. It's considerably the opposite. It's a total disregard for yourself.
Kind of, but how hilarious would it be to play as like a hyper like self-care barbarian? Like crunchy granola mom kind of barbarian. It's like vegan and everything else.
Yeah. That's so funny.
But yeah, where the real like interesting shit for barbarians comes in is in the subclasses. But that we can honestly say about pretty much all the classes.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I liked that you brought up Path of the Storm Herald and Path of the Ancestral Guardian as like a tie to druids as well, because it very much is. Like a lot of these, like the barbarian paths, which are your subclasses, are focused on your connection to nature and how you connect to nature. Some of them are more along the lines of how you connect to the anger within yourself, but that's only a couple. I think there's like Path of the Battle Rager, Path of the Berserker, and Path of the Juggernaut, I think.
Yeah. The classic like tropey barbarian subclasses are really limited to a few of them.
Yeah. Yeah, which is really, really funny because that has absolutely become like the most popular trope for barbarian is big, dumb,
the Hulk
hard.
a little bit.
Yeah. And most of the subclasses that are available to you to like specialize your build are almost the opposite of that. Like you have a lot of different options and a lot of utility kind of stuff that your rage does or that you have access to even outside of combat. Yeah, so barbarian is kind of the man. I'm thinking of so many like subclass abilities now that I'm like, oh, I would love to talk about this. Oh, I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But that's not what the purpose is right now.
Yeah, we gotta keep moving.
I'm staying on task. Yeah, barbarians in combat now. Specifically looking at like how barbarians would be played in combat with a party. Very much going to be tanks.
Yeah.
Very, very much going to be tanks.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing. One of my favorite things as of late, by which I mean the last couple years, is playing support. And I love buffing the shit out of my barbarian.
It's pretty cool.
So funny.
I'm on the exact opposite end. I love being the barbarian who gets buffed.
Yeah.
And then I go, I am invincible. But yeah, with the damage reduction that you get from rage, being you gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. My apologies for that. Everyone who just yawned with me, you have to say so in the comments.
Yep.
Solidarity, people. So damage resistances from rage, you get additional bonuses to your damage that you are dealing when you are in rage. And it usually makes you harder to cast spells upon as well. Like I think a lot of barbarian subclasses, you gain advantage against like fear and charm effects while you are in your rage. So your job is kind of to go run forward and break through the enemy spellcasters and front line.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you can do there. Like you said, there's so much that can be done from a support side to like really, really give your barbarian a chance to shine and to strategize all together. Which I think makes barbarian Barbarian can only ever be as interesting in D&D as they are willing to interact with and strategize with the other players.
I think so. Yeah.
And that's not to say Barbarian's bad because it's not interesting on its own. Because you can absolutely come up with some really badass backstories for Barbarians. But yeah, it's enhanced tenfold by how you work with your party.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next one?
Bart Simpson.
He would be a bard.
He would.
He
and
totally would.
That's because, in my opinion, the role of the bard in a party setting is disruption.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
Mm-hmm. Whether that is making yourself the center of attention or directly causing problems, debuffs, for enemy casters.
Yep. Now, our bards, martial or spell casting, what would you say their main focus is?
I mean, I spell casting.
Yeah.
That's pretty much only how I think of them.
That's fair. I have known some bardic builds to be a lot more physical, a lot more on the front lines, but bards notoriously don't get a ton of hit points, so it's a little harder to do that with them. But yeah, bard is kind of your typical just crazy musician as far as like the trope of what a bard is.
Yeah.
Lots of music, lots of performance checks and singing and all that is what colloquially I always struggle with that word. Colloquially, that's what the community and media portrays bards as. Yeah. I really like the way you put that with like disruption and everything though, because like it's very much like you have an incredible amount of ways to support and empower your allies and ways to really, really fuck with enemies.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Cleric.
Yeah, Bard's fast. Bard is just like,
Yeah.
that's what it do.
So is cleric, in my opinion.
Yeah?
Actually, I don't know if that's true, because cleric can play a few different roles. Why I initially say this is going to be quick is because like cleric's a hell of a healer. Everybody knows that. But having more recently played, what was it, Twilight Domain, and seeing shit like, war.
Yeah.
Cleric can be like, a damage caster just fine.
Yes, they can.
They can hold their own in combat a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think a big reason for that, cleric is one of the few spellcasting classes that is spellcasting heavy that gets access to medium armor and shields right off the jump.
Yeah. That's a big deal.
So you can armor up and you can grab your shield and whatever weapon you're using and you can just waltz on into battle. The other reason why clerics are so incredibly diverse is there are a stupid amount of subclasses for clerics, and they all do so many different things. But
I'm looking at 14, but I think honestly there might be more.
14 might be the core ones.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I think I am just looking at core stuff.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Sheesh.
Yeah, and that's not including any homebrew or anything. But where bards are kind of musical and performance based magic, where like the whole stigma behind their magic is that they went to, there's the bardic subclasses are called colleges. So it's like almost like a subset of wizard,
Right.
kind of, but it's more through expression and performance than it is through reading out of a book. Clerics are one of two, I believe there's only the two classes, that use divine magic. So they don't get their magic from the study of the arcane like wizards and bards probably also do. Yeah, bards are arcane casters. So like wizards, bards, pretty much all of the other spellcasters are arcane casters, meaning that it's like the natural magic of the world.
Yeah.
Clerics, and we'll talk about them a little bit, paladins are the only other one that get their magic directly from a deity that they worship. So a big stigma for clerics is that they're very like pious, like wearing their white robes and we must not kill and la 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 la, and I will protect you, but there's a lot more to it than that, than that. And for those of you who have heard like cleric is the healer, please do some reading. Check it out for yourself. You can absolutely heal with a cleric, but it is just as easy to take all the incredible damage dealing spells that clerics have and say, I'm not healing any of you. Good luck. I'm going to go kill the thing before you can die.
Yeah, read your subclasses, read your spell pools. Because they're really, really diverse. And you have far more to work with than you might think if you're new to the game here.
Faux show. But yeah, so clerics are more of the like devout. They're the nerdy religious people.
I would say
I
so.
think.
Yeah. Dude, there's this anime I've been watching called Frieren Beyond Journey's End.
I think I've heard of that one.
I think
I
might
the
have.
elf lady.
I might have mentioned it to you, but it's it's fantasy. It's very D&D in like its magic structures and how the main party is constructed. And there are two clerics, priests involved in the storyline, and they're both like depicted as very corrupt. There's a lot of like subversion of class tropes in that show that
That's really cool.
I love it. I love it so much.
That's really cool.
Let's talk about druids.
As referenced earlier, druids are probably one of my top 3 favorite classes in D&D.
Yeah.
Druids are so fucking cool. They are the essence of like being one with nature and like living out in the wild and living amongst the creatures and the trees and whatever have you. So druids technically are a spellcasting class. However, they have another innate ability that kind of trumps their spellcasting when it comes to what they are used for, specifically in combat.
Yeah, and their identity in general.
Yeah. Druids have the ability to wild shape, and they can shapeshift into animals. And some of their subclasses allow you to shapeshift into stronger animals or different creatures other than animals. The cool thing about that is that when you wild shape as a druid, however many hit points the thing that you turn into has, you just get those as extra hit points. So that when the thing you transformed into runs out of hit points, you go back to your regular hit points.
Yeah.
So druids, ironically, also make really, really good tanks in D&D because they can turn into an animal like a brown bear and have an extra like 50 or 60 hit points that they can just chew through and eat attacks.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
A lot of spontaneity in a druid.
Yeah. And on top of that, they actually have an extremely varying choice of spells that they can pick from. You know what else we didn't really talk about with some of the other spellcasters? Learned and prepared spells.
Yes.
Because druids have all of the spells that you have access to as a druid, you know every single one of them. You can only prepare a certain amount per day. So you get to choose every morning which set of spells you want to use that day. In comparison to something like a bard that learns the spells and they have access to learn any of the spells in their pool. But once you've learned the spell, that's it. You can't change it. Bards do that. Clerics are also prepared casters. They are... I think it's just cleric, druid, and paladin, if I'm not mistaken. And I think the reason for that is druids have access to divine magic as well as some arcane magic, I think. So they're kind of a mixed spellcaster. But paladins and clerics, the kind of flavor aspect of it is that their deity grants them whatever spells they wish to use for the day, as opposed to the other casters that are having to learn and log away their own spells.
Fighter's difficult.
Fighter, ironically, is probably the most difficult. I would definitely agree with that.
This is the most subclass dependent, I think.
It really is. I was just about to say, like, we could come right out and say, well, fighter's a martial class, so that's one thing. But some of the subclasses give them access to casting spells and using magic.
Right, yeah.
So it primarily is a martial class. But it's a martial class with so much diversity that we can't really put it into the role of, well, fighter is a tank, or fighter is a mid-range specialist, or fighter is a long-range specialist, because they can kind of do whatever you choose to do.
Yeah. I would say that if you're new and looking for a class that, rather, if you're coming into your campaign with the idea that you want to master your craft, you should look into fighter subclasses.
It'll also give you a really good idea of what choosing a subclass really means for the other classes, because it's easy to go into, I'm going to play a barbarian, and you pick Path of the Berserker because it's the barbarian subclass. But when you come into fighter, you can go with a champion fighter because it's like the standard easiest subclass to learn because it doesn't really add any mechanics. It just makes you a little better at hitting things.
Yeah, just the hero.
Yeah, basically. But if you take some time to do some reading and you really look into what the other fighter subclasses are, like, there are some crazy ones. Eldritch Knight is the one, like I was saying, that lets you cast spells. There's also Echo Knight, which is one of my personal favorites, and I think you've mentioned it before, whether or not it was on the podcast, but Echo Knight's incredible. And Rune Knight is one that I'm actually playing right now in a campaign. Very, very Viking coded.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's one of my favorite parts about Fighter, honestly, if I can kind of dive into that just for a minute. You can kind of pick any kind of warrior from any era, any part of history. If you're a history buff like I am, I love Vikings and samurai. That's like kind of my thing when it comes to like wars and everything. I love Japanese history and like Nordic history.
Yeah.
So I saw Rune Knight and I was like, Viking runes? Oh, this is great. And there's also an actual subclass called samurai. So
Yep.
tons of variety there. And they can really fill almost any role in a party aside from probably healer. I don't think a fighter could make a very good healer.
Not really. I don't know if I would say it's a primary caster in any of its subclass variations.
Not really, no.
Like even Eldritch Knight, I wouldn't. If I designing a party, I wouldn't want to make that my main caster.
That is absolutely fair.
That said, I could see it being interesting to run a party where that is your main caster, and you have to really rely on your physical abilities.
That would be an interesting one.
And like your barbarian and shit, you know?
Yeah. But
Dude.
again, that kind of plays back to it depends on what kind of a campaign you're playing.
It does. Yep.
Yeah. I think that's my favorite part of D&D. There's so much variety on so many different levels.
Mm-hmm.
That like you can't really just go, oh well, I play a fighter. That's like the only thing that I do, and I can just pick up my character and drop it into any campaign that I play. Because most of the time, at least one of those campaigns is going to be just different enough that your fighter is not as useful.
Yeah. It'll happen eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Monk
Here we
is close quarters combat.
Here we go. Yeah. Monk is close quarters combat and getting into close quarters as quickly and effectively as humanly possible. Or I should say mortally possible.
Well, right, humans.
Yeah. So monks are a martial class. There is nothing about this class that gives you access to spells. Because monks have their innate energy, as it were. They have key points. And you use that key to empower your unarmed, well, not necessarily unarmed, but like your martial fighting styles.
Yep.
Most of the time it's unarmed. Some people like to use like short swords or quarter stabs and things like that. But imagine Iron Fist.
Mm-hmm.
It's very Iron Fist. Like
Yeah.
he's got the power within, super strong punching. That's a monk.
Yep. Worth noting that like as a new player, you shouldn't hear monk and go like that's a specific type of guy. You know, like I have to be a monastic like Doctor Strange type of character.
Yeah,
like,
you don't necessarily need to be a Shaolin monk to play a monk.
Yeah. These, especially once you take a second to look at the subclasses, you realize that like there's a lot of room for some interesting characterization, especially when you analyze some of these subclasses in particular and see, oh, this is the Sun Soul's based on Dragon Ball, Astral stuff is based on JoJo's. Like,
yeah, and there's
I see what's going on here.
there's a few subclasses too that are like you could easily play like an evil or like dark neutral type character with some of these subclasses.
Yeah, definitely.
There's
Way of the Long Death. Are you kidding me?
Way of the Long Death. And Way of Shadow. Yeah. So again, looking at subclasses, I know we we said we were just gonna do class kind of descriptors, but it's nearly impossible to do so without
it's important to analyze subclasses at least in how much variety they give your class, because like, like I said, you can't just look at a class and think this is how this is going to be characterized. It's like there's a ton of different ways that monk can go, that fighter can go, that cleric can go. You know, you gotta you got to think beyond the tropes that you've seen when you're jumping into a campaign.
Yeah. Pulling back from the variation and the subclasses and everything, kind of the main thing that sets monks apart are their key abilities, like we mentioned. And the fact that as you level up as a monk, it's like they kind of styled it around gaining like rising up the belt system in an actual martial art. So like by the time you get to level 20, you're like a 4th degree black belt. So when you start off, you have a martial arts die, which is the die that you use as like your damage die when you make like an unarmed attack.
Yeah.
And that starts out as 1d4. By the time you hit level 20, it's 1d10. So you're doing a lot more damage.
Yeah.
And the other thing that increases incrementally alongside the damage dice is it's called unarmored movement. When you're not wearing armor, you can just move faster.
Yeah.
And to give you a reference to how much faster that is, base characters usually start out with either 25 feet of movement for a small character or 30 feet of movement for a medium-sized character. At 2nd level, monks gain an additional 10 feet of movement. At 20th level, monks gain an additional 30 feet of movement. So you could effectively double your walking speed as a monk. And there are other abilities as you level up that say that you can like run across liquids, or you can run up walls and on ceilings as long as you land right side up. And then also the like stunning strike, flurry of blows kind of stuff that we talked about before. When they get up and close in combat, they can hit multiple times by using their key points. And they can also channel energy into those strikes to try to stun an enemy for a turn. So monks are not necessarily doing tons of damage with each individual strike. Where their strength truly lies is being the most maneuverable thing on the battlefield.
Yeah, they're looking for their moment.
Yes.
They are combat strategists.
Very much so. Yeah, and you can play them just as easily as I run up, I stand in front of them, and I bam, 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 bam. You can do that, just like a barbarian.
Yep.
But like you said, if you can really strategize how you want to attack and strategize with your party, it can be a huge boon.
Yeah.
One additional thing, again, jumping back and forth because there's so much to mention with every class that it's inevitable I'm going to forget something. Monks share a similar ability to barbarians that we actually did not mention, which is their just unarmored armor class bonus. When barbarians are not wearing armor, they gain a bonus to their armor class equal to their constitution modifier because they're just tough as hell.
Yeah.
And for monks, they gain a different kind of unarmored bonus. It is using their wisdom to kind of play into the whole like training of the self and everything. So yeah, you don't need to wear any armor. While you're not wearing armor, you get all these bonus effects like the movement and everything. And you still have a pretty high armor class because you're using your wisdom as part of that. Ugh. Of all the classes, I think monks honestly have the most to talk about just in the base class.
They have a ton.
There's an insane amount of abilities that comes with monk.
Yes.
I'm going to let that one go.
Paladin is kind of a different story in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think comparatively there is less variety for the Paladin.
Yeah.
It's not to say it's not as cool because I think Paladins are dope as hell. But yeah, I think there's, in my opinion, less room for less room for different characterizations of the paladin.
Yeah, I think paladins fill a very specific slot on a team. And I think it's hard to really pull the paladin away and say, you have options to do this, 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 or this. Because they're so damn good at what they do. It is, yeah. It's insane. So what is it that sets paladin apart from every other class?
Well, their oath, more than anything. And party buffs.
Yeah.
Party buffs are a huge deal for the paladin.
Crazy thing about paladins, I don't think I could honestly say one way or the other, this is a martial class or this is a spellcasting class.
I think you're right about that. Yeah, they embody a lot of both.
They're pretty split down the middle.
Though, like, I do frequently imagine paladin as like big sacred sword. You know?
Yeah. They might lean more towards martial than they do towards spellcasting.
So the thing though is that it's a big sacred sword.
That is true.
Like there's something special about it, or
has
the
magical effects.
wielder themselves, right? Because divine smite.
Oh yeah,
Like
divine smite.
they're fighting, their martial abilities themselves are channeling something greater than themselves.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like paladins don't have to cast a single spell in combat to use divine magic.
It just comes along with the movement of the blade.
Yeah,
And I love them for that because that's a cool way to fight.
it really is. And like you said before, with the oath that they take, paladins are a lot more along the lines of, I have a rigid belief system, and because of this oath that I have sworn to my deity, I have been granted unique special abilities.
I think paladin, through that dynamic, is more easily characterized the way someone inexperienced might think a cleric is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like more, more often pious and reverent than most cleric subclasses, I think.
Yeah, a little more along the lines of like Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because one of the most important abilities of the paladin has nothing to do with their martial prowess or their spellcasting. It is the auras.
Yeah.
Paladin auras are insane. They're so freaking good. And you get multiple of them. You get several. Depending on your subclass, you might get a couple different kinds of auras.
Yeah.
Most important one probably being... Where is it? Aura of courage. Aura of protection is, I think, the most important one. Whenever you or a friendly creature within 10 feet of you must make a saving throw, they gain a bonus to the saving throw equal to your charisma modifier.
Yeah.
So it is like you are the inspiring presence of the party. And then you also get Aura of Courage, like I said. Same effect, you and friendly creatures within 10 feet of you cannot be frightened while you are conscious. When you get to level 18 as a paladin, the range of your auras increases from 10 feet to 30 feet.
Yeah. Yeah. Real crazy.
Yeah, so lots going on there. And like you said before, they can spend their spell slots to just channel extra divine damage into their attacks. So if you're not casting spells in combat, which as a paladin, you're not casting spells in combat super often?
It depends, because it depends on your party composition, like everything does. Because like I have been in a campaign, I think, where the paladin was the main healer.
Oh.
Which is wild and can actually work.
Yeah. Yeah, because they also have a pool of lay on hands hit points.
Yes.
So they just have a passive amount of hit points chilling that they can just touch someone and give them as many hit points as they want up to the maximum of that
Yep.
pool, which is insane to me because when you get to higher levels, that can be like 60.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, I think when it comes to like where would you put a paladin in combat, I think a great place for a paladin in combat is between the barbarian and the squishy spellcasters in the back.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the auras demand that you have very good positional awareness with your paladin.
Yeah.
And frankly, it demands that of the entire party, but like yeah, everyone has to be conscious about that, and I think you're right. That position is kind of where the paladin belongs.
Yeah, cuz you kind of want to be like the combat commander. Like when we said monk was the combat strategist, like their attacks are very precise and they are in and out and lots of movement. Paladins are the ones that you probably don't want moving a ton, and you want them to be able to have pretty quick access to almost everyone in the party.
Yeah.
Because again, going back to the lay on hands pool thing, really cool ability about that, you can spend as little or as many hit points from that as you want. So if you have a party member that goes down, the paladin can run over, boop, give them 1 hit point.
Yeah.
And they're back up.
Yeah.
And then you can continue on. And so that's a ton of basically free revivifies that the paladin has, as long as you do it before they run out of death saves.
Yeah.
But yeah, so paladin is like, you kind of want them in the middle. You want them to have access to anybody pretty much at any time. But they also deal some pretty insane damage.
They fucking do.
Yeah.
Okay, hello Ranger.
Redheaded stepchild of D&D. Everyone has an extremely polarizing view of Ranger.
Yeah.
You kind of either love it or hate it.
Yeah. As frustrated as I get with Ranger, like there is a lot to love from a roleplay perspective.
Yes, that there is. They're kind of druid light.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say so. It's more of a it's like a martial druid.
Yeah. It's druid without the wild shape.
Yeah.
Is kind of what it is. So you're pretty good at martial stuff because you have a little bit of fighter in you. So I would say Ranger is primarily a martial class. You do have spells and you do have a decent amount of utility in those spells, but you don't have very many spell slots. Yeah. A lot of the class abilities and subclass abilities that you get are very combat heavy. Very, very combat heavy as far as like they are used to counteract extremely specific types of monsters or things. Because as a ranger, you're learning to hunt, and you're learning to hunt specific enemies. And you are learning to do that in specific environments.
Yeah.
So you gain like your favored terrain. So you can, if you take the mountains as your favored terrain as a ranger, you are not hindered by what would normally be difficult terrain that would cost like double your movement. You can just walk on through it because you know these mountains.
Yeah.
And favorite enemies, you gain a bonus against specific types of creatures that you are hunting. Lots of those types of abilities. And yeah. There's not a ton else to talk about with Ranger. Yeah. It's kind of sad, and I think that's kind of the reason why a lot of people wish that. Yeah, I think it's kind of the reason why a lot of people wish that the Ranger class were stronger, because it has a lot of potential and it could be really cool. But mechanically, it's kind of the slightly weaker half of a fighter combined with the slightly weaker half of a druid.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about rogue.
Roguses, basic from the top. Rogues are martial classes.
Yeah.
They really don't have much spellcasting. They don't have any spellcasting except for the Arcane Trickster subclass, which is similar to the Eldritch Knight subclass for fighter. Like you said, it is a utility spellcasting. Yeah. It's not. You're not going to be a primary caster.
None of that should drive you away from playing a rogue, though.
Yeah,
because rogues are fun. They're strong as fuck.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, sneak attack, core mechanic of the rogue class. When you like, there are a few different ways that you can gain sneak attack damage on an opponent, but when you do, you're throwing in like an extra 5d6 points of damage. And I think it can go even higher than that. I don't know what I think is the highest, like 8. No, I'm sorry. The highest amount of sneak attack damage you can get is 10d6. So you can do some insane damage with rogues. And the cool thing about that is you can do that either with stabbing with knife, or you can do that with like a crossbow or a short bow or a longbow or something. So in that way, honestly, they have more flexibility than Ranger, because you can be either short or long range doing serious damage in both directions.
Yeah. No, that's true. I buy that.
Yeah. Ranger definitely does have short or long range as well, but you're not doing anywhere near as much damage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see rogue used as an archer very often.
Yeah.
In my experience, at least.
That's really cool, because I've actually never played with a long-ranged rogue before.
Really?
Yeah. I definitely want to try it at some point, though.
It works, like well enough, especially assassin.
Yeah, that's true. Assassin's a good one for that. I think where most of the alternative fighting styles for rogues come in are in 2, maybe 3 of the subclasses. Swashbuckler and Inquisitive are the 2 for sure.
Yeah.
And then I think Mastermind gives you a few more options. But Swashbuckler is really cool because it essentially says, okay, you were sneaky, sneaky thief boy. Now you are pirate.
Yeah.
So you get to be a swashbuckler, and you use your charisma to kind of like call people out and do like one-on-one duels. Super fun.
Yeah.
Inquisitive is a rogue that is more suited to studying their enemy. Like you make like an insight check against their deception. And then if you succeed, you can get sneak attack damage on them without meeting the other requirements.
Yeah. This is the quintessential detective.
Yeah. Very, very detective. But yeah, so I think what really separates rogue from the other martial classes is, like we mentioned before, sneak attack. You are trying to be stealthy. You are trying to be precise with your attacks without having the movement and flying around the battlefield abilities that a monk does.
Yeah.
Rogues are like the typical rolling across a sunlit hallway to get back into the shadows and hide with their knives and then jump out and stab.
Yeah, exactly.
But like you said, you can play it in many, many different ways. I think it would be really fun to play a rogue who is like a nobleman and is just like very like in the day, like when you're out of combat, is very just like.
Did you mean Batman?
God damn it.
Honestly, I thought that's where you were headed.
No, it wasn't. I was just thinking like it'd be cool to be like, you know, like a politician or something, and then you know, like fucking Batman.
It would be cool to play that.
Yeah. Thanks, DC. You fucking stole my idea.
Hey, I mean, they did it really well.
They did.
Batman's awesome.
They very did. But yeah, so I mean, the trope around rogues is like sticky fingers, stealing shit,
Yeah.
and all that. So
It can be so much more.
it can be.
Sorcerer is my favorite caster.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
I've decided that.
We're into the big three of spellcasters now.
Yeah.
Tell us about Sorcerer then.
This is your innate magic caster.
Yeah.
And boy, do you have options.
What do you mean by innate?
It comes from your character. It comes from something they were born with or inflicted with.
Inflicted with. That is a cool way to think about it. But yeah, so they don't have like a spell book or anything like wizards do. There's no like talisman or deity or whatever that the magic comes from. It's not from nature. It is literally your bloodline or something like that.
Yeah. Yes.
That's cool. That's I think that's one of the coolest forms of spellcasting.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I was born
shit,
like this.
dude. I mean, Jujutsu Kaisen sorcerers are aptly named sorcerers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've got it going on in their bloodline, or just they, awaken latent abilities. That show has made me love this class that much more.
That's really cool.
Because like sorcerer is it's a very individualistic type of caster. Like, unless you're talking about something like a bloodline or techniques that are passed down, which also exists in Jujutsu Kaisen. You're talking about somebody who has developed themselves. And so I think like it's really important with that in mind to like branch out even within your subclass and like find what your sorcerer's technique is, if you will.
That's a really cool way to look at it. And I think
like what is their bread and butter?
I think that's something that honestly you can apply to almost any character in any class. Develop a signature style.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a really cool way to think about it. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just trying to tie it back into my own character again, but I'm going to stop doing that actually.
Gotta save the secrets.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things that sorcerers have that really set them apart from other casters is the ability to customize their spells.
Yes.
Which is
To
huge.
a high degree.
So you get a resource within yourself called sorcery points. Much like monks have key points, you have sorcery points. Using those sorcery points, you can change aspects of the spells that you cast. You can make them a bonus action to cast instead of a full action. You can make them have twice the range they normally would have. You can make people have disadvantage on saving throws against the spells.
Subtle spell.
Oh, subtle spell. Dude, whenever I'm just like, all right, really quick, I need a sorcerer. The two options that I go for are quickened and subtle spell.
They're awesome. They're really, really cool and good.
Subtle spell means you don't have to use verbal or somatic components. Verbal components meaning you are chanting something to cast the spell. Somatic components meaning you are using your hands to cast the spell. With subtle spell, no verbal, no somatic.
Yeah.
So you can just silently, without making a noise or a sound or movement, cast a spell, and no one knows where it came from. So freaking
It's amazing.
cool. Yeah. And
Warlock is different.
Yeah, Warlock is different. Interestingly enough, for Sorcerer, that's like the main thing as far as the base class. That's the main thing that they have is sorcery points.
Yeah.
And the rest of the like diversity in the class comes from what type of magic is flowing through your veins, which is your subclass. But again, all of the different subclasses give you so many incredible different options. And with any of them, you can develop a signature style using like a spell or two that are like your go-tos.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so freaking cool. I'm going to have similar comments regarding sorcerer and wizard. Just because though they are very like opposites as far as like how they are spellcasters, they're very similar when it comes to mechanics. But before we get to wizards, I'm getting ahead of myself. Warlocks are next.
Oh, yeah.
Warlock is another one in my top 3.
I am thoroughly unexperienced with... I actually just have not used one ever.
Really?
Yeah, I think.
I would highly encourage you to give it a shot sometime.
I'd like to, yeah.
Warlocks are spellcasters who did not get their magic by learning it. They did not get their magic by discovering it within themselves. They did not get their magic by worshiping a deity. They got their magic by making a deal.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, otherworldly power somewhere, one of you, I will sell you my soul.
Yep.
Or whatever the deal is, if you will give me power. And something responds and says, okay. And you have made a pact.
Yeah.
So
That is awesome.
you have a patron who gives you your magic. And purely from a flavor standpoint, like, talk to your DM. That patron might love you, they might not care about you, or they might hate you. Maybe if you do something your patron doesn't like, they take away your magic. Like, this is a huge thing that you can build on in campaigns. As far as like, you want to role play, warlocks. Warlocks have probably the most role play just built into the character.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are a lot of features that warlocks have. Because warlocks fall into a category called half-caster. They don't get like all the way up to like level 9 spells. They only get up to 5th level. Along with warlocks in that, I believe, are rangers and paladins.
And Bard? No?
Bards get 9th level,
Oh
baby.
my God, I forgot.
Bards go all the way up.
Jesus.
Yeah, bards
That's
are
really
strong
good.
as fuck. But yeah, rangers only get up to 5th level, paladins only get up to 5th level, and warlocks only get up to 5th level.
Good for them.
Yeah. But where warlocks' power really comes from is their pact. So you get an otherworldly patron at level 1. Your patron is your subclass. So there's a lot of different ones. You can make a patron with an archfey, with a celestial, with a fiend, a genie.
Baby.
Yup. One of my favorites is the Hexblade. There are sentient weapons in the world sometimes, and you can make a deal with one of them.
Yeah.
But then, on top of your patron, you get what is called a pact boon. So once you have made the pact, then give you a choice of a few different ways that they will let you channel their power. Pact boon gives you a few options. Pact of the Blade, so you can summon weapons out of thin air. Pact of the Chain, which gives you a familiar, like a little pseudo-dragon or an imp or something that follows you around and you can use to do magic tricks. Pact of the Tome, which gives you kind of a spell book. And there's another one that I believe came from a Critical Role book called Pact of the Talisman, which is you have just like a little talisman thing and you can give it to people and they get buffs and bonuses based on the talisman, or you can keep it for yourself and get those buffs and bonuses. But yeah, so your pact boon can also determine how you play your character. Because based on your patron that you took, you might get some innate abilities. And then based on your pact boon will it reflect how you are going to play your character, like kind of in combat. And then on top of that, you get what's called Eldritch Invocations, which are just kind of magical mutations that your patron bestows upon you. Like the ability to see through magical darkness, the ability to cast mage armor on yourself at will, which is a spell that gives you a slight bonus to your armor class. And there are some that at higher levels will let you change the shape of your body and cast Alter Self so you physically turn into someone else.
Oh, wow.
Whenever you want.
Damn.
There are some insanely powerful ones. Yeah. And then, since you only get up to 5th level spells consistently with Warlock, once you get up to level 11, level 13, 15, and 17, you get what's called Mystic Arcanum, which is a bestowed spell once per day from your patron. And you get a 6th level spell, you get a 7th level spell, an 8th level, and a 9th level spell.
Jesus.
At each of those incremental levels.
Okay.
So while you are technically a half caster, which means you don't get very many spell slots.
There are workarounds.
Like even at level 20, you only have 4 spell slots. So you don't have a ton. But you've got cantrips that you can cast as many times as you want. You've got all your Eldritch Invocations. You've got your Pact Boon.
Jeez.
You've got your Mystic Arcanum. There is so much. Of all the classes in D&D, Warlock is the most customizable. You can play any kind of Warlock that you want. And you'll never play the same one twice. I think I did my baby justice.
I think so. Yeah.
So anyway, on to the final one.
The wizard.
Wizard. Kind of the other quintessential D&D class. You kind of have barbarian at the beginning and then wizard to wrap things up.
Yep.
I think you've probably played more wizards than I have, haven't you? No?
No.
I thought for sure one of us had played
I've
a wizard.
played a wizard.
Well, that's more than I.
Okay. Well, and truth be told, I don't even remember what class it was.
The subclass, you mean?
What subclass? Yes.
Yeah.
I sort of. Well, shit, I don't know. It may have been evocation.
Yeah, wizards are the most spellcaster of spellcasters.
Yeah.
Wizards go to school and they study hard and they learn magic by training and taking classes and learning how to draw the circles and how to say the incantations and how to move their fingies. And you get spells. And as you get spells, you write them in your spell book so that you can remember all the spells that you have. And in the morning, you can flip through your spell book of all the spells you've learned and pick a few to prepare for the day. And your subclass basically says you're better at this type of magic, you're better at that type of magic, or this type of magic. Like maybe you'll be better at illusion magic to make things look like things they're not, make yourself look different, whatever. Or maybe you'll be better at necromancy, raising the dead, creating skeletons. Maybe you'll be better at enchantment, where you can like charm people and things like that. Those are the primary functions of your subclasses. Where wizards gain their innate badassery is from the spells that they choose to learn and how they function.
Yeah, this is how you create your wizard, really. This is how you identify it.
Yeah.
Like it's similar. This is a similar principle to building a sorcerer in, like, you know, how you find your bread and butter, but it is much more focused on the identity of your spells.
Yeah.
So you have a lot more to choose from, and more spells to, kind of mold your identity with.
Yeah. And depending on which school of magic you've studied, your subclass will give you a few innate abilities that are not tied to your casting spells necessarily, but will relate very heavily to the school of magic that you chose to specialize in. So you can kind of steer yourself in a direction with subclasses that way, but it's still very heavily dependent on like what kind of a wizard are you going to be?
Yes.
So very, very cool. Yeah, I mean that's the list. Do we want to hit Artificer and Bloodhunter?
Yeah, we might as well.
Let's do it. We're here.
Artificer at the very least.
Artificer. Now, this one, I think you've played a couple.
Yes.
I have not.
Artificers are really cool. You have played an Artificer, actually. Darren.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know you're wanting to change that.
Well, the subclass, yeah, but
Oh, just a subclass.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
yeah, I want to make him. I think I wanted to make him an alchemist.
Okay. Interesting. I think you were working on Battlesmith before.
That or armor. I couldn't remember which one it was because I don't think we got high enough to choose.
Yeah, I know. I know your roadmap was like you wanted him to build like a power suit eventually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think we might change it up. I gotta go back and like read all that because I haven't played him in so long. Oh, I missed
Do you
my
have
boy.
like a backstory document or something?
Oh yeah. Oh hell
okay.
yeah.
I want to see that. Artificers are the technicians. They are strategists. They are incredibly good support. There are a lot of ways that you can play an artificer. And I love infusions so much. I've never played an artificer up to the level where like I can really make fantastic use of infusions, but
yeah.
with Minoth, this one I'm playing in Aaron's campaign, I really want to experiment with that a bit.
Yeah.
I need to find a way to work that into the character. I feel like I've pigeonholed myself just a little bit in like how attached he is to his background. Actually, I think I'll find a way to work with that. His whole thing is like he's really into skincare, and yeah, and like I don't know. I think maybe I'm being a bit silly with that, and it's getting kind of tropey and campy. But
well, I think there's a lot of direction you can take with it because it's basically like you're kind of filling the role of like snake oil salesman kind of a thing.
Sort of, yeah. Maybe I need to lean more into that. But eventually, what I want to do is like kind of transform that a little bit into infusions. You know, I don't know. I'll figure it out. That's an alchemist.
Yeah. Man, artificers are insane because it's like it's technically a spellcaster. I think they're also technically half casters, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're definitely half casters.
But artificers aren't really there to do a lot of spellcasting. They're kind of there for the infusions and the magic items and everything.
Yes, and the turret.
The turret.
I love the turret.
Yeah, so walk me through like the process because artificer infusions are the thing that is usually hung me up on like not being able to really commit to an artificer.
Yeah,
because it's confusing to me.
It is a little confusing, yeah. So the thing is like the infusions require you to attain a certain level, which is why I haven't done a ton with them. But you know, you're taking like items, just basic stuff and changing something about them, like altering them. You are I mean, the artificer is often depicted as the tinkerer, right? So you're fucking with shit. You know how to take things apart and like modify them to your own ends. Like at 6th level, you can take a pair of boots and turn them into the boots of the winding path. While wearing these boots, a creature can teleport up to 15 feet as a bonus action to an unoccupied space the creature can see. The creature must have occupied that space at some point during the current turn.
Oh, that's so cool. You can like trace or recall.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff that we're looking at. So you make magic items.
That is really sick.
And then of course, homunculus servant is something you can do early on, but it costs a gem or crystal worth at least 100 gold.
Ooh.
It's expensive. I have thrown an artificer at you in our campaign way back. He had a few homunculi he threw at you that were mechanical wasps.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because there are some really, really insane infusions that you can do, like specifically in replicating magic items at higher levels.
Yep.
Like you can make a belt of hill giant strength.
Yeah.
Which just sets your strength score to 21.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's kind of awesome.
That's kind of insane.
So this is part of why I love playing Artificer as support. Because you can make that kind of shit for him.
So it's not something that you have to be using or wearing?
No.
Oh.
No. Like all of these items when I'm looking at them are things that I'm thinking about giving to party members.
Oh, fuck.
That is the power of the Artificer.
Okay. See, I was looking at it and I was like, all right, I've got all these infusions. That's great. I still only have like a finite amount of attunement slots, and I don't use heavy armor, and I don't use helmets. I don't use a crossbow. So like enchanting some crossbow or enchanting heavy armor, like it doesn't help me at all.
Yeah. Yeah. You think of these initially as like, okay, what would this realistically do for me? But what you should be asking is, what can Boots of the Winding Path do for my monk?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be insane. And see, that goes to showcase just like the difference between kind of the way you and I approach D&D. I've said it, I think, in almost every episode. I'm very I'm working on enhancing myself and creating the best version of my character that I possibly can. And you are looking at me doing that and going, I can help.
Yeah.
I can make it better.
Yep.
Yeah, and both of those players are equally important and necessary in the party. It's so freaking cool. Well, this is awesome because that has given me a better understanding of artificers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was just kind of looked at it and I was like, you don't get enough spells. You get too many infusions to know what to do with them. And then you're just kind of left sitting there with like a bunch of toys in your arms going, what do I do with these?
Yeah, they're not all for you.
They want everything for me. But yeah.
Yeah, and the list of, again, replicable magic items is long as fuck.
Yeah. And it increases at like every level too, which is disgusting.
It's awesome. Play an Artificer, please. Tell me about Blood Hunter.
Oh, Blood Hunter. I love Blood Hunters from a distance.
Oh.
It is hard for me to play a Blood Hunter. Eventually I will, because I want to make myself do it.
Yeah.
The hard part about Blood Hunter for me is that it feels like a worse version of a fighter combined with not really spell casting, but kind of spells. So it just feels like kind of like I was saying with Ranger, where it's like the worst half of a fighter combined with like the worst half of like a warlock. But that being said, the reason I say that, blood hunters are meant to be a martial class. They are meant to be a person who has undergone like some horrifying ritual or experience or something to where they've developed the ability to channel their own energy within their blood to like take damage on themselves in order to apply a physical effect or more damage to their target.
Yeah.
So some of the taglines that are on D&D are sacrifice to preserve life or a monster to fight monsters. Like your whole thing is kind of, you are kind of anathema to society because you have undergone this ritualistic, sometimes like a transformation or something like that, or you just are known to have undergone this ritual or whatever it was that made you a blood hunter, and people kind of look at you and go, ugh.
Yeah.
Like it's very Witcher coded.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just popped into my head.
That's
It's
a really
very
that's
Witcher.
a good way to put that. Yeah.
So, yeah. Let me find the stuff. Okay. Yeah. Hunter's Bane. I'm gonna do a little bit of a dive into what the specific abilities are.
Yeah.
Because I have very little experience with the class. You have survived the Hunter's Bane, which is a ritual that alters your life's blood. So it gives you advantage on some like survival checks to track Fey, Fiends, Undead. And it also gives you a set amount of Hemocraft dice, which are related to your blood. So you can use your own blood and life essence to fuel your abilities. Again, so like you will sacrifice some of your hit points to apply an effect. You gain a fighting style similar to the fighter class where you can use archery, you can use great weapon fighting, 2-weapon fighting, something like that. But then part of the customization of a blood hunter is you get different rights, they are called. So as you level up and improve your character, you can choose more than one right. When you use, it's called a Crimson Right. When you use your Crimson Right, you can activate a different type of damage for each one that you currently have access to. So you will like roll one of your Hemocraft die, which I think is like a D6 or a D8, take that much damage, and then your weapons become engulfed in the element of your right. So right of the Flame, extra damage dealt is fire damage. Right of the Frozen, extra damage dealt is cold damage. There's Storm for lightning damage. And then once you get up to level 14, you get 3 more that you can choose from. Right of the Dead for necrotic damage, Right of the Oracle for psychic damage, and Right of the Roar for thunder damage. So you're kind of collecting different types of damage that you can deal. So you're modifying what enemies you will have, like the variety to be able to attack, because some enemies are immune to fire damage, so you might switch to your Right of the Frozen to do cold damage. Or maybe an enemy is vulnerable to necrotic damage, so you switch to Right of the Dead to do necrotic damage. And then you have different blood curses that you can use like once per day or something like that to force a creature to like make a saving throw, or they have a detrimental effect placed on them. Excuse me. One of them is like Blood Curse of the Anxious. As a bonus action, you can make an enemy make a As a bonus action, you just make an enemy anxious, basically, which gives anyone advantage on intimidation checks against that creature until the end of your next turn. So if you used that and you like something about, I don't, that's the thing that like makes it hard for me. I don't know how to visualize how a blood hunter does these things because I just haven't done it before.
Oh, sure.
So like,
yeah.
I'm sitting here, I'm thinking like, what would the blood hunter's like blood curse of the anxious? How would that look?
Yeah.
Like, what do you like? I suppose one would be like you could like pop blood vessels in your eyes and make your eyes go like red or
That's
black or
neat.
something.
Yeah.
And then you like just terrify the fuck out of someone.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. So there are effects like that. There are some that make people lose movement speed. There are some that make people like swell, and when you hit them, they take more necrotic damage. Lots of different options there. And then you have 4 different subclasses, the orders. 2 of them are popular, 2 of them are less popular.
Yeah.
One of them, Order of the Ghost Slayer. Not all that popular. Gives you access to Rite of the Dawn, an additional Crimson Rite that would deal radiant damage. Has a few other kind of more like specifically like you can reach into, you can step into the veil between the planes and you can like interact with incorporeal creatures.
Yeah.
Kind of cool, pretty niche. There is Order of the Profane Soul, which essentially lets you take Warlock as your subclass. And you get a few, like you get a patron, and you get a few aspects of Warlock, like the Pact Magic, and you get some spell slots. But the more popular ones, Order of the Mutant. You can craft mutagens, which are like little potions that you can drink, or formulas that you can drink, and they give you mutations. They can make you soft and squishy, and you can squeeze through like 1-inch gaps between materials. They can improve your eyesight. They can give you advantage on dexterity checks, but then you also gain disadvantage on wisdom checks. All of them have a pro and a con. So it's like you might have a formula that really helps with this situation, but then also makes you vulnerable to specific kinds of attacks or something. Really, really cool. I love the idea of it. But the most famous of the Blood Hunter subclasses is Order of the Lichen, which you are a werewolf.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Wow.
You become a werewolf. So you have hybrid transformation. You can just transform whenever you choose to into your hybrid form. And yeah, so it's a little bit more along the lines of like hunting and stalking and physical combat. But yeah, that one is the most popular, obviously, werewolf class. Lots of people love it. But yeah, I haven't really played a Blood Hunter. I have seen a Blood Hunter played on Critical Role.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a Blood Hunter in campaign 2. And they currently have a Blood Hunter in campaign 3 that is actually a lycanthropy.
Oh, that's right.
Blood Hunter.
They made it for that.
Yes. This is Matt Mercer's
Yeah.
class. But yeah, so what I have learned about Blood Hunter from Critical Role is that it is very much a martial class. It is very much meant to be kind of in the front of the battles up there with Barbarian. They're not as tanky. They don't have as many hit points, but their whole thing is they're kind of a glass cannon. They take a lot of damage, but they also deal a lot of damage. So, yeah. You guys try out Blood Hunter. Give us, tell us how it goes. Tell us if any of you are already playing a Blood Hunter. Tell us about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to us about, I want to hear someone who's experienced talk about the classes that we are less experienced with.
Yeah. Because like I said, I have a few top classes that I play a lot.
Yeah.
Or I've done a lot of research on. And then there are the other classes that I haven't done much with.
Yep.
So if you guys have played really badass Rangers, Tell us about it. We kind of hate on it all the time, but I mean, a character is as cool as its player. So if you are playing a ranger in a really interesting way, then that's going to be a really interesting ranger. So talk to us about it. But I think I think we've gone a little over the time that we were hoping to spend on this.
A little bit.
We very, very naively thought to ourselves, yeah, we'll go over the classes and then we'll have time to talk about some other stuff.
Yeah, the thing is there are a lot of them.
There are a lot of classes, yeah. But I think that was a fun way to jump back into the new year and kind of start things fresh.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. So, hey, thanks for watching. If you would like, and no, it's not up to you actually. I am hereby beseeching that you send us your experiences with these classes and talk to us about your homebrew, because that's one of the biggest parts of this podcast is homebrew, which we are going to get into some of in the next episode.
Oh, yeah. One of your New Year's resolutions had better be to talk to us.
Send your stuff to summongreaterpod@gmail.com or @summongreater on Twitter.
Bye-bye!